All right. Well, hello, Luke 10 community. I'm Rostin Callerman, and I'm here with John White. We're here for the third installment of John's most difficult church planting experiences, and there's worst church planting experiences and the lessons that he learned from those things. So, John, I think you've got another story for us today.
I sometimes think we could this series could go on indefinitely. John's greatest failures probably have who knows, hundreds of these.
Well, it's always fun to laugh at you. So
sometimes we think let's write a book called "Great Mistakes We Have Made in Church Planting and Doing Church." So anyway,
I like it.
So this is another one of these seminars, which is looking back with fascinating, right? That's the key.
Yeah, so remind everyone that we talked a few weeks ago about what a seminar is. Why is a seminar so important for you? What's this word mean to you?
Well, it's a way to reframe things that we tend to look at as failures or mistakes or things that didn't work. If you reframe it as a seminar, that is a learning opportunity, it really changes how you feel about it. And so I think that's an incredibly simple but powerful idea.
So the next time I slam my hand in a door, instead of just being angry about it, I can say, well, this is a seminar. God, what am I needing to learn from this experience of slamming my hand in a door?
You got it. See,
perfect.
Quick study. So let's see. I'm going to put this. In the schedule. So it's probably sometime in the 1990s. I'm still on staff with a mega church. And one day, I forget even how this happened, I came across a verse in the New Testament that just knocked my socks off. Mm-hmm. I'd always been interested in the early church. What was the early church like? And so, you've got Acts 2 as a great example of the church in Jerusalem. But, I always wonder, what exactly, if you walked into a church in the first century, what would you have seen? What did it look like? And I didn't have a real clear picture in my mind. Somehow or other that never got talked about in seminary. We studied church history, but the practical things of how did they do church, we just didn't get to. So one day I came across this verse, and it dawned on me, this one verse probably described better than any other in the New Testament what actually happened in church. It's like, where has this been my whole life? And I realized that I had never heard anybody teach on it or preach on it. I'd never seen any books on it. It's like, this was just amazing. And the verse is 1 Corinthians 14:26.
Okay.
And here's what it says. Paul says, when you come together, brothers, and so a couple of comments there. One is coming together. For Paul was always the sense of coming together for church. When you do church, brothers, and so it's sort of this idea of spiritual family, brothers, sisters. When you come together, brothers, everyone has a word of instruction, a hymn, revelation, a tongue, and interpretation, that all these things be done for the edification of the church. And the word that just floored me was the word everyone. Because it implied that when they did church in the first century, everybody contributed. It was sort of like we say a spiritual potluck. Everybody brought something to the table, and then everybody took from the table. And again, I'm at this point on staff. I'm the director of adult ministries of a church of about 3,000 or 4,000 people. We have 4 services on Sunday morning, and the idea of everyone contributing was just impossible. I mean, if somebody stood up in the middle of the service, we have seats 900 people, and it's filled every time. I can just picture somebody standing up in the middle of the service saying, "Excuse me, Pastor, I have a passage I'd like to share or a song to share." And, I just picture the ushers coming down and saying, "Come this way, please." it just, we had an hour to do church, and there's no room for anything to go wrong and all that. So that's part of my dilemma, is I'm trying to figure out, I have no idea how you would even do this in the context of our church. But this was church in the first century. It wasn't like, we have a few small groups. This was church. Well, then the Lord moved us out of institutional church sometime later, but still thinking deeply about this verse. And so we began to do house church. And again, I would teach on this, and I would say, this is what happens at house church, and we need to do this. And then we'd come together for house church, and I'd say, well, who brought something to share? And people would kind of look at me like, I don't know, And so I teach on it again. Here's what Scripture says. So I was just relentless in teaching this thing, but it wasn't making any difference. And so I was asking the Lord, what am I missing here? I see that this is participatory church compared to what I've been trained in, which I now call spectator Christianity. But I don't know how to activate this. I don't know how people aren't getting it. They've spent so much time in being spectators. They don't know how to be participants. What do we do? And one day it dawned on me, this idea that Jesus is present when we meet. And I always say, no, really, Jesus is present when we meet. Because we always said that. We didn't really live that way. And so one Sunday I said to my house church, take out a piece of paper and write down this question. So Jesus, what do you want to say to this church today? And then we sent them off for 15, 20 minutes to just listen to the Lord. Write down what comes to mind, spontaneous thoughts you believe might be from the Lord. And we come back together and we began to share. Well, it all happened. People began to come back. They had passages of Scripture. They had songs. They had prophetic blessings. They had ministry assignment, everything that you think church is supposed to be. So we say church flows from listening. Whereas I spent 25 years in traditional church, and it was my job as the pastor to make sure church happened. We needed to do worship. We needed instruction. We needed fellowship. We needed some sort of outreach or expression. And it was my job to help all that happen. And all of a sudden I realized Jesus is way better at doing all those things than I would ever be. And so that one little insight totally changed how we've done house church ever since. That's kind of how we explain it to people. And so I did it wrong for a long time. Again, spectator church, I think, and then trying to beat people up enough that they would do 1 Corinthians 14:26, and then realizing it's way easier than I ever imagined.
Yeah, I love that. I love that your response to people not doing 1 Corinthians 14:26 was to continue teaching over and over again 1 Corinthians 14:26. It's really
the only tool that I had. It's like if all you have is a hammer, you just keep pounding that nail.
I think we might be cut out of the same bull-headed cloth
Yeah.
in that case.
I'm glad Jesus is patient with us. I know that.
That's really good. So how long? What's the time frame? So you said this was the late 90s. How long would you say it was between you starting to talk about 1 Corinthians 14:26 in these house churches, and then in this realization that you're talking about here?
I would say it was a couple of years at least.
Wow.
And I kept coming back to it.
Oh, that's tough.
I just got to teach it better. I got to unpack it better.
There's some word I'm not teaching quite well enough right now.
We got to do the Greek, and the Greek, and so
that's tough. And you were determined,
or just slow, I think is a better word.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, that's really good. Thank you. And yeah, like that's like you said, that's now we take it for granted in the Luke 10 community that church flowing out of listening it's just the way we do things. We don't talk about it any different anymore. And this was 20 years, well, a little less than 20 years ago, because it took you 2 years to.
That's back when my hair wasn't white. Long time.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that.
I know. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, John. This was really great.
You bet, Ross. A delight to be with you.